Hi everybody and welcome to an Age of Fantasy Battle Report with a human, dwarf, elven alliance versus ghouls and beastmen. The three friends and heroes of Teniras, Faewynn, Haleth and Galtrin, are once again united. They have all led the forces of the living of Teniras against the Necromancer's undead and demonic troops. Even though the Eternal Wardens guard most access ways into the land, somehow the undead troops seem to find a way in. Now, Elven scouts have finally found the reason behind the enemy movement. In a small, abandoned town in the middle of a graveyard, a large magic portal seems to be the Necromancer's secret passageway. The three heroes, along with small groups of allied elves, dwarfs and humans, must attack and shut down the portal. It's only guarded by a few groups of ghouls. But just as Galtrin is about to signal attack, the portal glows, and 5 large beastmen, accompanied by a Beast Centaur, appear. The Beast Centaur has a tough value of 3. It's crazed, fast, furious, and head-taker, and armed with great weapon. Alongside 5 elite beastmen, also furious head-takers, and armed with great weapons. One of them is a sergeant. Then we have a group of ghouls, joined with a ghoul leader. The ghoul leader is armed with a poisonous claw attack and a tough value of 3, and all the other ghouls also have poisonous claws. The ghouls have regeneration and they are undead. The ghouls have positioned one group at the east and one at the west entrance of the graveyard. Faewynn is the leader of the alliance. She is a high noble elf sorceress. She is armed with a spear, she knows magic, and she has the special ability Bitter Rivalry and Herbalist. Then we have a group of dwarf iron warriors. They are slow, they have shield wall, and they are armed with rune weapons. Haleth is an elf champion with a tough value of 3. He has the special ability Crazed and Hunter, and he's armed with hand weapons and great bow. He's joined to a unit of elven weapon masters, all of them armed with great weapons. Finally, Galtrin. He's also a tough value 3 hero armed with hand weapon. He is motivated and a prowler, and he is joined to a unit of marksmen armed with hand weapons and crossbows. There are 3 objectives surrounding the graveyard and the portal. One here in the lower left corner, one in the central part of the graveyard, and one at the upper right section at the east entrance, guarded by a group of ghouls. Whoever controls the most objectives at the end of turn 4 will win. The alliance will roll the blue dice and the beastmen and ghouls the purple dice. Let's roll off. And it looks like the beastmen and ghouls have the advantage. Let's go to round number 1. The group of ghouls at the west entrance of the graveyard will activate first, and they will rush towards the objective. They cannot reach it, but they will take position and cover behind the guardhouse. Faewynn will take the lead of the allied forces, and now they are outnumbered. She will have to use her magic very effectively, so she will try with a spell against 2 friendly units. You'll need a 4 to cast protection. But her first attempt at magic failed. Now instead she will move slightly to the left, and from here she will have a better overview of the graveyard and the surrounding houses. The ghoul leader and his group of ghouls activate and rush out of the graveyard at the central entrance. This is a frontal attack against the dwarfs and elves. And immediately the 5 iron warriors respond to that, so they charge against the ghouls. The dwarfs will hit with a roll of 3, and they have 5 rune weapon attacks. So 3 hits against the ghouls. The rune weapons are AP nothing, and they have no rending hits, so the ghouls will block with rolls of 5. And they will immediately block 1, but fail 2 defense rolls. So 2 are removed, and they also fail their regeneration attempts. Instead, the remaining ghouls can fight back. They will hit with force for a total of 6 attacks, 3 from the leader and 3 from the regular ghouls. So they will actually hit 3 times against the dwarves. And with a 6, one of the hits will be multiplied with 3 because of the poison rule. So now the dwarves will face 6 hits, and they will defend with 3s. And except for 1, they will block the hits. And I should mention that I actually forgot to move 1 dwarf in this attack, so there are actually 4 dwarves left and not 3 as seen here. And the ghouls lost the fight, but I forgot all about the morale test. I will fix that later. Instead, the Beastmen Centaur will activate. He can charge up to 16 inches, so he will furiously charge against the dwarves. He is furious, and that will give him a total of 4 attacks. But he's also crazed, so he must roll a die to see what happens, and with a roll of 2, his attacks will get rending. So 4 attacks with AP2 and rending, and he will hit on a 4. And on top of that, he also has 3 impact hits. So 4 regular attacks and 3 impact. And he will hit with 1 attack only, but that attack will be rending because of his crazed die roll. So a total of 4 hits, 1 of them rending. And the dwarves will begin with the rending hit. They fail that one. And next up, they will defend with a 4 because they have shield wall. So it's not AP2 but AP1. And they make 1 save roll, but they still take 3 hits, and they lost 1 dwarf already. So that will remove 3 dwarves, and now we have to remember the final dwarf. He is still around. So 1 dwarf will be left after the attack. And he can of course fight back against the centaur, and he will fail his attack. He's too shocked, I guess. And he also faces a morale test because the battle was lost clearly. But he makes that one. He is eager to keep fighting and defend Faewynn. Haleth and the Elves decide to move against the objective here at the upper right part of the graveyard. And they take position on the first floor of a building because here Haleth can see the group of beastmen and fire his great bow. 3 shots hitting on 4s. Well, he makes 1 hit. And it's AP1, but the beastmen have a rather tough defense of 3, so they will need 4s. And they easily shake off that arrow. No hits. Laughing at the arrows, the beastmen here reposition themselves, and they take control of the central objective of the graveyard. And they also, of course, defend the portal. And Galtrin now signals attack. The group of marksmen and Galtrin advance 6 inches, and from this position they can see and fire their crossbows at the group of ghouls hiding behind the guard hut. So they fire their weapons, and they need 5s to hit. And a pathetic round of shooting, only 1 hit. And the crossbows are AP nothing. But still, the ghouls fail to block, but the 1 failed defense roll will be regenerated, so the ghouls will take no hits at all. Finally, the group of ghouls guarding the east entrance will move slightly, and they will take control and defend the second objective. So at the end of the first round, there have been some heavy fighting in the central part of the town, just in front of the graveyard entrance. The east entrance and objective is controlled by the ghouls, the central objective is controlled by the beastmen, and the marksmen and Galtrin have taken control over the final objective. And that means, so far, the beastmen and ghouls control more objectives. Let's see what happens in round 2. The allied forces activate first in round 2, and Faewynn will target the Centaur with a quench spell, potentially dealing 7 hits if she can roll a 4. And again, her magic fails, so the Centaur will take no hits and still be the biggest threat on the battlefield. Faewynn moves to the objective. The ghouls at the east entrance have already controlled the objective, so they can move now, and they rush along the central part of the graveyard towards the allied forces. And even though they move, they still control the objective. Galtrin and the marksmen must try to perform better in this round, so they will now charge in for a close combat attack. Galtrin has 3 attacks, and he will hit on 4s. The marksmen have 5 attacks with hand weapons, and they will hit on 5s. And Galtrin is successful with 2 hits, but only 1 marksman will hit. Now let's see if the ghouls can block the attacks. They will need 6s to block Galtrin's attacks, and a 5 to block the marksman attack. And they will fail it all, so potentially 3 wounds. Now they will see if they can roll a 5 or a 6 to regenerate, and one of the wounds will be regenerated. 2 ghouls will be cut into pieces by Galtrin. The remaining ghouls will attack back. 3 attacks, hitting on 4s. And they fail 2 of them, but 1 of them will hit, and it will be poisonous, so that will count as 3 hits. And the attacks must now be blocked by the marksmen, and they need 5s. So they will block 1 and fail 2. So 2 marksmen are down. They have 1 final chance to heal if they can roll 6 because of Faewynn's herbalist ability. But no, the battle is over and tied. The group of elite beastmen blow the horn to attack. They move out of the west entrance and rush towards Galtrin and the marksman group, and also the objective. They leave the objective behind but still control it. Haleth and the weapon masters have a new priority. They will forget about the objective and instead charge the Centaur boss. If he attacks again, he will most likely obliterate an entire unit. Instead, the weapon masters attack, and they hit with 3s. And they have AP2 weapons, so they hit with 4 hits against the Centaur. And then Haleth, because of his crazed ability, he gets 1 extra attack when he charges, so he also has a total of 4 attacks, and he hits on 4s. So a total of 7 hits against the Centaur. He will now need a roll of 6 to block the 4 marksman attack. And he will fail them all. And that leaves him in a rather unfortunate situation. But he will also, of course, try to block Haleth attacks. And he also fails everything. And that means that the elves have effectively charged and killed the Centaur boss with a total of 7 wounds. Far more than he has. A successful and great attack. The elves will consolidate and move slightly backwards. So the alliance just took out the leader. Now the ghouls will try to do the same. The remaining ghouls from behind the guardhouse will charge Faewynn. And if they can take her down, that will be a very heavy blow against the allied forces. But first they must try to roll a dangerous terrain test because of her phalanx ability, and they will pass that one. But the ghouls have fought before. They need 6s to hit her, but if they roll 6, the attacks will be poisonous. But they will fail all their attacks, and Faewynn is unharmed. She can now fight back with her spear. She will need a 3 to hit. And she is far more effective with her spear than with her magic so far. 3 hits back, and it's AP1. The ghouls must again roll 6s to block. 1 hit blocked. 2 will hit the target. but they can be saved by regeneration. And one of them will regenerate and get back into the fight. So one ghoul at the end of this fight. But that leaves the remaining ghouls with a morale test. And the undead morale test is different. They will have to roll a die, and on a roll of 1 or 2, they will take a wound that cannot be regenerated. And one of them leaves the battlefield, leaving only one behind. The one remaining dwarf Iron Warrior will jump through the window of this building and rush towards the objective. He is slow, so he can only move 8 inches. So now let's go back to the mistake in the first round. I forgot to roll morale test for this group of ghouls. They will roll 1 morale die for each unit and tough value. So that's a total of 6, and they will fail 3 of them. So they will fail their morale tests, and that will take out the 3 regular ghouls, leaving only the leader behind. And the leader will now activate. He will also jump through the window and chase down the dwarf. He will charge the dwarf with 3 attacks, and he hits on 4s. And he fails all 3 attacks. His backstabbing attempt against the dwarf failed completely. Now the dwarf will turn around and attack back with 1 rune weapon attack. He will hit on a 3. And it's a hit, and it's also a rending hit. So the ghoul leader must roll a 6 to block, and he cannot regenerate the wound. So 1 wound to the ghoul leader. He still has 2 left. And he will back off. And he will also make the morale test this time. At the end of the second round, there really have been some heavy fighting. The beastmen and ghouls still control 2 objectives, and the allied forces control 1. But there have been heavy losses on both sides, and specifically the Centaur boss was killed by a carefully planned and effective Elven attack. Let's go to the third round. And for the allied forces, this battle has turned into a fight of position because they do not control the most objectives. But the Elven group here and Haleth have proved to be very effective in close combat, and they charge the group of 5 ghouls. First, the Weapon Master attacks. They will hit on a roll of 3, so they will strike with 3 of them. And then Haleth, with his ability, he can attack 4 times, and he will need a roll of 4. Ooh. And he will not hit anything this time. So, 3 hits, and the ghouls must defend with rolls of 6. And 1 sneaky ghoul will avoid the hit, and the 2 others will have a regeneration chance. One of them will regenerate. So in the end, only 1 ghoul will be struck down by the elves. Now they can fight back. They will need rolls of 4 to hit. And they will produce 3 hits against the elves. Now they must defend. They have a defense of 4. They can risk to lose this battle, but they won't. But 1 elf will bite the dust. So 1 casualty on each side. That will tie this battle. The elves must back off, but no one will be forced to make morale tests. Now, on the other side of the battlefield, Galtrin and the marksmen could face a great challenge, because the beastmen will charge them. The beastmen have 2 attacks because they are furious, and they will only need 3s to hit with their great weapons. And furthermore, one of them is a sergeant, so he will only need a 2 to hit. But let's begin with the regular beastmen here. And let's get all the dice into the camera frame here. A total of 5 hits. And then the sergeant with 2 attacks. He will hit on both of them. So in the end, 7 devastating hits against the marksmen and Galtrin, and that means with an AP 3 value they will have to roll 6s, and only 6s will count. We'll begin with the regular marksmen, and all of them will fail. And that leaves Galtrin with 4 attacks, and he will have to defend at least 2 of them, otherwise he's eliminated. And he will block 1, but he will take 3 hits. Now, the last chance is the Herbalist ability from Faewynn. They will need to roll 6s, and then they will ignore the wound. The marksman cannot. So now Galtrin has 3 chances. He will have to roll a 6 with at least one of them, and he does. He rolls 1 6, and that means he takes 2 wounds, but he is still alive. But his entire unit is brutally eliminated. Galtrin can fight back now. With 3 attacks, he will hit on a roll of 4, but it's very unlikely that he will be able to win this battle. No, let's see, he will make 1 hit and 1 hit only. The Beastmen also have a tough defense, so let's see if they can shake off that hit, and they can. No Beastmen will take damage. Galtrin will lose the battle, and he will be forced to make a morale test. But he has the special ability Motivated, so he always passes the first morale test of a match. So he will survive, and he will stay. Now Faewynn must do something. It's now or never. She will try to cast her most difficult spell, Tempest. It will take a 5 for it to work, but it will deal 2 enemy units 6 AP1 hits. Let's see if she can do it. So far her magic has failed completely. But it's a 5. She will cast the spell Tempest, and that means the Ghoul as well as the Beastmen unit will take 6 AP1 hits. Let's begin with the Ghoul. And if the Ghoul survives this, he will definitely become Ghoul of the Year. But I think I can safely say, even though it has a regeneration chance, that it's completely blasted, eliminated out of this match. But that was only the beginning. Now the Beastmen will face a tough challenge as well. They will need force to block the 6 hits from Faewynn. And they are significantly tougher. They will block 4 of the magic hits. So 2 Beastmen are struck down and removed. But it is most likely that they will kill Galtrin in the next round, so Faewynn has no choice but to charge them with her spear as well. So she will have 3 spear attacks hitting on 3s, and she will hit with all of them. And again, the spear is AP1, so the Beastmen must once again roll 4s. And they fail all their defense rolls. Faewynn attacks them with her spear, and she takes out the entire unit. In 1 activation, she removed 1 Ghoul and 5 Beastmen. So if her magic is successful, she is a force of nature. Now on the other side of the battlefield, the Ghoul leader will try to eliminate the Dwarf and prevent him from reaching the objective. And the Ghoul has poisonous claws. It will fail with 2 out of the 3 claw attacks, but 1 of them will be poisonous, so that's 3 attacks. And the Dwarf will block once again all the attacks. No damage. And the Dwarf can fight back. 1 rune weapon attack hitting on a 3. It's a hit. It's AP nothing. The Ghoul leader needs a 5, and that's exactly what he gets. So this battle ends with no damage at all, and the Ghoul leader will back off. And the Dwarf Iron Warrior has fought now, so he makes a run for it. As long as he can get 8 inches, he rushes towards the objective, sadly not enough to reach it and control it. Now the fight between the elves and the ghouls at the entrance to the graveyard is not over yet. Both sides have fought before this round, but the ghouls will charge anyway. They will need 6s, and if they roll a 6, the hit will be poisonous. So that's a chance, but they could succeed. No hits from the ghoul side. So the elves and Haleth can now fight back, but they will of course also need rolls of 6. And none of the elves will hit, but Haleth will make 1 hit, and that could be the 1 hit that will win the battle for the elves. So Haleth is an AP nothing attack. The ghouls will need a roll of 5. And what about regeneration? No. 1 ghoul will be eliminated, so the fight will go to the elves, and the ghouls will have to make a morale test. And as we know now, it's a roll of 1 or 2 that will deal them a wound that cannot be regenerated. But that did not happen here, so the ghouls will just back off. Galtrin is heavily wounded, and he will prefer not to participate in this battle anymore. So he stays back and guards the objective. And that also concludes the 3rd round. Galtrin controls 1 objective, but the demonic forces and ghouls still control the 2 other objectives. Faewynn finally had an impact on this battle, and she removed the entire unit of beastmen all alone. But there are still ghouls in the way of the elves, and the remaining dwarf and the ghoul leader have their own fight. Let's go to the final round. And the ghoul leader is still determined to stop the dwarf and keep control of the objective. And he has no trouble catching up with the dwarf. Of course, because the dwarf is slow. So he will attack with his 3 claw attacks. He will hit on a roll of 4, and keep an eye on the 6s. They will be poisonous. And we already have a regular hit and a poisonous hit here. So the poisonous hit will be multiplied with 3, and then we will dig out the last die, and it's a failed attack. So 4 hits. And the dwarf still has the shield wall ability and a good defense, but he will need 4 rolls of 3 or more. And now fate has caught up with the dwarf. He will fail 3 of the hits, and that will be the end of the final dwarf of the alliance. And that secures the objective for the ghouls now. None of the allied heroes will be able to reach it. So it's all about the central objective, in the middle of the graveyard now. And Faewynn rushes her full distance of 12 inches. And from this position, she is not close enough to capture the objective, but she is close enough to use her magic on the ghouls. So she will try to cast a quench spell, and she will need a roll of 4, and that will potentially deal 7 hits to the ghouls. But she fails yet again. No magic, and she can't do anything else. That will leave the initiative to the ghouls now. They control the central objective, and they must defend it and the portal, and the best defend, according to the ghouls, is attack. So they charge the elves now, and they need 4s, but yet again keep an eye on the 6s. Ooh, and that certainly was the right time to roll 6s for the ghouls. 1 regular hit and 2 poisonous hits that will be multiplied with 3. 7 hits against the unit of elves and of course Haleth. They will now have to rely on their elven armor. They have saves of 4, but they will have to roll quite a few of them. We will begin with the regular weapon masters, and it's not looking good. 2 elves are hit and killed, but there are still 3 hits left to deal with. So the two remaining Elven weapon masters must again try to roll at least 4. And they fail yet again. Both elves are now removed, leaving Haleth with 1 hit to deal with. And with a tough value of 3, he will survive, but he only has a defense of 5, so let's see, he fails the block, so he will take 1 wound now. But he has a chance to fight back now. He has 3 attacks, and he will need a 4 to hit any of the ghouls. And he hits with 1 of his attacks. And the ghoul fails to block, and it also fails regeneration. He takes down 1 ghoul, 2 ghouls left, but he still lost the battle, and Haleth will now face a morale test. The ghouls will consolidate back, block the entrance, and stay close to the objective. And Haleth will need a 4. And he makes the morale test. Barely. He is still in the fight, and he really has to make a difference now. Instead of the entrance, he jumps over the broken wall section and rushes close to the objective. And with the hunter ability, he can shoot even after rush actions. He will fire his great bow 3 times against the ghoul, and he will hit with a 4. And he hits with all 3 bow attacks against the 2 remaining ghouls. And they fail 2 defense rolls that could remove them, and in that case Haleth will claim the objective. Let's see the regeneration. No, both ghouls fail their regeneration. Haleth has shot them both down and out of the way, and by doing so he claims the central objective. So the heroes now control 2 objectives, with the final objective controlled by the ghouls. With the enemy defeated, the heroes can now destroy the portal, but as they stand in front of it, they wonder if they instead should pass through it and perform a surprise attack deep in the heart of the Necromancer's hideout. As they debate their options, they forget all about the ghoul leader, who is still alive, and the only one able to warn the Necromancer before it's too late. Thanks a lot for watching this battle report. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, or comment if you like, and I hope you'll join me for future bad reps.